Hey everybody, this is Mark from We Talk Art. In this video, we're going to go back and readdress graphite. A couple weeks ago, I did a pretty comprehensive video that I'm going to link here on graphite. But in that, I talked about graphite powder and all the things you could mix with graphite. I actually hadn't tried all of them. So we did the water thing and we did it dry, but I had mentioned quite a few others. And I thought that I would like to experiment and try it out. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well record it so you can get an idea of the different mediums you can put into graphite to spread it on paper to get different things. I'm hoping for a nice dark surface that you might be able to use as a background or other elements within a drawing. So let's roll the intro and get into it. As I talked about in the graphite video, you can take graphite powder and mix it with a variety of different things to apply it down. I mean, you can put it down dry, which we are going to do in this example, but you can also add water to it, which we showed in the other video, but we're going to do that again today. And then I also mentioned that you could put alcohol with it. You could put a solvent such as Gamsol with it. You can put an oil. I was talking about linseed oil. This is a water miscible linseed oil, meaning that it's water cleanupable. Hopefully that will work okay, because that's what I have. I also felt like you could use gum arabic, so we're going to put gum arabic in it. And then as a last minute addition, I decided to put acrylic matte medium in it. I was wanting something pretty liquidy. This is pretty decent. May have to put a little water in it. So these are going to be the things I'm going to try. We're going to put it on a paper. I have a sheet of 100% cotton watercolor paper. I chose hot press because I thought that would be a more common thing to draw on. And this is actually a fairly new watercolor paper by a company, a Chinese company that's gotten to be kind of popular recently called Bohong. And so we're going to use that as the base. It is a 140-pound hot press, 100% cotton sized watercolor paper. Very similar to what you'd paint watercolor on, and some people like to draw on these hot press watercolor papers. I chose that because I felt like Gamsol and the oil and the alcohol might want to just soak right through it. So I feel like this is a pretty decent paper that can hold up to those products. Now the Gamsol is a solvent, and that would also be, you could probably use turpentine, paint thinner. But Gamsol is a Gamblin product that's highly refined, and so this has less odor and less toxicity, which is going to lead me to the next topic, is that I'm talking about products that you should probably use a certain amount of safety if you're going to use these products, and it is up to you to research the safety and decide on how to implement that yourself. For me, I am going to wear a mask. Anytime you're using a powdered substance, art material, I think a dust mask at the minimum is a wise thing. And I'm also going to wear gloves when I'm applying this. We're going to apply these with cotton balls because I've seen that as a kind of a common thing. And then I don't have to worry about the cleanup of all this stuff on different brushes or so forth. Again, if you're going to use these, research them. It's your responsibility to keep your safety up. I just want to mention that some precautions should be considered. So I have a sheet of paper down, and I have swatches areas for all of the products we're going to test. And then I added two kind of test areas that I'm going to use two pencils in, kind of to give an idea of the comparison. I wanted to use two of the blackest options that I looked at in the graphite video, and so I'm going to put down a swatch of the Faber Castell Pitt Graphic Matte and the Staedtler Lumagraph Black, and we'll be able to then see how these compare. What I'm going to be looking for in these tests is how it lays down, how it applies, how dark it is, what the surface quality is going to be, you know, Graphite has a shiny kind of surface to it, and a lot of times we're trying to avoid that to get the darkest kind of results. And then I'm going to see if we can erase it, which I'm guessing on all the ones with liquid it's going to be a no. I'm actually not going to mix this here. I'm going to mix this all in my workroom, which I'll bring you in because I have vent fans in there. And then I'll bring it out and apply it out here. So that's what we're going to do, and we'll meet you in the workroom. Okay, so I'm in my workroom here. I do have a vent fan in here. You can hear it, so that's that background noise that you're hearing. I have us all set up down here with the different products. What I thought is that I would mix them each and then apply them one at a time so that they don't sit in here and possibly age, dry, whatever is going to happen. So I'll probably start and go out, do the dry, then we'll do the water, the alcohol, Gamsol, oil, gum arabic, and the acrylic. To make this simple, it may not work out that way, but I thought what I would do is put 1 part graphite to 1 part medium. And I thought I'd start with a teaspoon. The hope is that will give me the fluidity that I need, and that will apply properly. And that way it'll be easy to keep them even, so we kind of have a good comparison of them. But to be honest, if I feel like I don't have the fluidity that I want, I may alter that formula, and I'll let you know. It may be on a 1 basis, or I may get into it, decide that the fluidity I'm getting is just not gonna work, and we'll just make it up as we go. Again, this is a test. We'll see how it goes, and we will start. I think I'll take this out. We'll do the graphite first, just dry, and then I'll start with the water. Okay, so I have the graphite here. We're going to start with the dry section here as the first go. I did put gloves on. Graphite itself is fairly safe. I just thought I'd put these on, keep the mess down, and as I get into other things that I don't want on my skin, that's good precaution. And they keep your hands clean, so good thing. So we're going to start again with this dry. There's different ways to apply this. To be consistent, I'm just going to continue with the cotton balls. As I did in the graphite video, I used some other smudge tools to do this. But we're going to start with that, and I'm already starting a mess. Try to do a few layers in order to get it as dark as possible. You can definitely see why adding a fluid to the graphite has its advantages. So step 1, that's the dry section. Okay, so we just did the dry section, and I came in. I was going to actually do the water next, so we're going to do this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to divvy out the graphite, 1 teaspoon in each of my cups, and then we'll start with water and work our way through this lot. I am going to put on a mask. So I have 1 teaspoon here. I'm just going to go through, and I'm going to do it pretty leveled off. Okay, we're going to do water first. I'm not thinking you would have to necessarily measure this all out, but for this, just so we are consistent, we'll do that. And I am seeing already my idea of a 1-to-1 mixture is probably not going to be enough. I'm getting something akin to mud. So we're going to go and do 2 and see if that gets us closer. So a 1-to-2 mixture maybe. That's already looking better. You see in there it's looking like liquid graphite. I just got back from mixing up the water-based one, and we're going to apply it here. Still might be a little dense, meaning that maybe a little bit more water. I'll have to watch the other ones as I do them. As you saw, I put in my 1-to-1 formula wasn't enough, so then I did 2-to-1, and it may still not be enough. It still feels very goopy. Since I did the water before, I'll let this one ride, but I may, on the next one, which is alcohol, we may go with a more of the alcohol. And we'll give that a test. So I'm going in and we're going to do alcohol now. Okay, so in the water test, I felt like it was still a little goopy, so I am going to add a little bit more alcohol. So I'm going to play around with it. Maybe we're up to 1 to 3. We'll find out here. I'm going to start out with the 1 to 1, just in case this works out to be a little bit different. Okay, so this is close to 1 to 1. This is definitely mixing up different than the water did. So I think I'm going to go and do it the 2 to 1, roughly. Seems to be a little bit more fluidy, but it's also the alcohol's not holding the graphite quite the way the water did. Now, one interesting thing to note with this is that I know when you mix oils with mediums, you use a molar on a tempered glass sheet. I am not going to do that. So if that doesn't work sometime, I might try that in the future. Okay, it's now mixed up pretty good. It looks pretty fluid, so the 2 to 1 with alcohol seemed to work a little bit better. So now we're going to go out and apply this. Okay, I am back with alcohol. I'm guessing this will dry a lot faster than the water and the oil. On the surface, it looks just about like the water. Very, very similar. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is going to be the Gamsol. Okay, I'm back in here, and the next one I'm doing is the Gamsol. So far, it looks like a 2 to 1 mix has been what's working, so we're going to continue with that probably. This is kind of looking a little bit like it may require a little bit more, but I don't know if that's just because of the larger container. But it's pretty liquidy. I think we're going to go with it. Okay, so we're going back out. Got some Gamsol. Okay, swatch number 3, we're doing Gamsol. Gamsol is a gambling product, as I mentioned before. It is a solvent. It's a highly refined solvent that's a lower odor, less toxicity. The alcohol seemed to be kind of the most fluid at 1 part of graphite to 2 parts of the solvent. This one's a little thicker, a little bit more like the water was. Okay, so the Gamsol seemed to go on a little bit darker than the alcohol. It's very similar looking to me to the water at this point. Of course, none of this is dried completely. The one thing that is kind of obvious, so as I'm doing this, is what you're going to do for an applicator if you want to do any kind of detail work would definitely be a challenge. You might want, if you like the cotton surface, which it seems to do a fairly good job, is you may need to use Q-tip type things or something like the golden smudge tool, or possibly even a stomp or something that has a sharper tip to apply this with. The Gamsol has the best surface. The water, and again, it was a little thicker, but it has more lines in it, and the Gamsol has gone down fairly flat so far. So next one up is going to be the oil. So be right back with that. Okay, so we're on to swatch 4. Swatch 4 is going to be the oil, and I'm using a Royal Talons water cleanup of oil, as I mentioned earlier. It'll be easier on me, but I didn't have any just traditional linseed oil. So there may be some difference between the two, but they should act very, very similar, is my understanding. And I'm going to continue with the 2 parts of this medium. Graphite isn't taken to it quite as easily as the other liquids that I so far, but it is mixing. So Looks to me like it's just a little bit more chunky. I can see a little bit more into it. I'm going to mix it for a while longer, see if I can smooth it out. Okay, I've gotten to be fairly smooth. We're going to go with that. So this is the oil medium, and traditionally oil in, if I was going to use oil paints or medium in oil paints, I would expect it to take quite a long time to dry. And as you heard as I was mixing it, it definitely mixed a little bit slower than the others. The consistency though is kind of a little lighter than the water. My cotton ball is not that great. A little lighter than the water, more fluid, but not as fluid as the alcohol or the Gamsol. It's definitely a different consistency, and it is pretty dark. Okay, a little bit better. Definitely is at this point looking darker. It'll be interesting how it dries. I am going to come back with gum arabic. Okay, so my next one is going to be gum arabic, and I'm using a Winsor Newton gum arabic here. The interesting thing about gum arabic is that it is the binder for watercolor. I don't know if it should be, it says you can add water to it. This is kind of an additional medium for watercolor, but you can also mix pigment into this to get pretty much a watercolor. But I'm unsure if I'm going to need to add water to that. So I'm going to go with the 2-to-1 mix, 1 part graphite, 2 parts gum arabic, and go with that and see how that goes. Another option might be adding some amount of water to that, but we're going to give this a go and see how it goes. Gum arabic, because it's watercolor, is water soluble. I believe it comes from a resin from a plant bush kind of thing that's in part of Asia or North Africa. It does feel like it's starting to mix in now, getting smoother, but it has it's very similar to the way the oil worked. Yeah, so we are getting a fairly smooth result now. So I'll take this out and we'll put this onto the paper now. Okay, so we're on swatch 6, and this is the gum arabic. It is kind of interesting the different consistencies I'm getting it out of these. Of course, the materials themselves, like the oil and the alcohol and so forth, are pretty drastically different things. Okay, so the oil as it's drying is still kind of seems to be the darkest one at this point. This one, wet, is definitely fairly dark. So we'll let that one go. And then again, the acrylic medium was a last minute, it's like, oh, I should try that too. Although I can't imagine it's going to have a final product like these other things, but I thought it would be interesting if nothing else. A thing to note is that Daniel Smith, I think, makes a graphite watercolor that I assume is just basically what I did here, is graphite and the gum arabic binder, although they may mix other magic in to get what they're doing. Okay, so I'll be right back now with acrylic medium. Okay, the last one we're doing here is going to be acrylic medium. And this again was the wild card. Wasn't quite sure if this was going to be would work or not, but I thought, what the heck, we'll give it a try. And this is going to be a little thicker. I don't know if I'll have to add water to it or not, but I'll go with my same formula now that I've been working on of 2-to-1, 2 medium, 1 part graphite. Let's see what kind of mess we make with this. This may end up as a putty, so I may have to add water to it. See, it's kind of forming some of my putty thing going on here. So Golden makes a fluid medium, and that was kind of my first choice, but I didn't have it. And then I remembered I had this bottle here, and it's fairly liquidy. but I suspect that the golden fluid acrylic medium would maybe be a little thinner, but we are just going to throw a little bit of water in this until I get the consistency I'm looking for. Because it's acrylic, water-based, should be good. Another thing to note is that I chose matte. Often these mediums come in glossy matte or satin. Um, because I was trying to get the matte finish on the black opposed to a glossy finish, I felt like the glossy finish may augment the shine of the graphite a little more than I wanted. So that's why I ended up deciding on matte finish. So I guess we see if that ends up being a good choice or not. Okay, this is starting to, I kind of have a feeling that I put another part of water into this. And it's still a little goopy, so I think I'll add a little bit more water. So it's probably, if I was going to do this, I'd probably do equal parts water, equal parts medium, at least for this Liquitech. And now I'm kind of getting this, yeah, so that's kind of the consistency that I had been targeting with the other ones. And it seemed to absorb in. It seems to be pretty creamy. You never know, this might end up being a good option. Okay, I have the last of our liquidy samples we're going to put on here. And this is the acrylic. It's Liquitex Matte Acrylic Medium. Unsure about this one. Kind of, I didn't think of it initially, and then maybe I should try that. And it actually looks pretty good. Okay, so I have my different options. So I have dry, alcohol, Gamsol, oil, medium, gum arabic, acrylic medium, and water. I think I'm safe to take my gloves off now. I'm gonna do my two pencils. We'll start off with the Staedtler Lumagraph Black. This is a half carbon, half graphite pencil. I think it has a really nice blackness to it. It's a fairly matte finish. I think it's a great pencil. Some artists don't like the tug to it. It doesn't feel quite like graphite, and then it doesn't erase like graphite does. And I'm bearing down on this pretty hard, probably harder than you would normally bear down on this. And actually, because of that, it's starting to create a smoother surface. That is the Staedtler Lumagraph Black. This pencil is a Pitt, Faber Castell Pitt Graphite Matte. And this is a fairly new pencil. I think it only came out a couple of years ago. It is their matte finished. And then these pencils, unlike traditional pencils that kind of stop at 9B, go all the way up to a 14B. So very soft, matte finish, which gives it a darker end result, although it's still graphite. So it still kind of has a graphite look to it. I think I'm going to do the same thing, as bear down on it as much as I can at this end to get as much coverage as possible. Often when you bear down on these pencils, it will cause the surface to be shiny regardless of the goal of the pencil. So the 14B softness of the pencil is definitely nice, but you'd end up putting a lot of graphite down, which means that you kind of get it having to sharpen it a lot more. Okay, so I have my different samples here. Again, we have just dry with cotton, alcohol, Gamsol, oil, gum arabic, acrylic medium, and water. And then this is the Staedtler Lumagraphic Black, and then this is the Faber Castell Pitt Graphite Matte. And then as far as any kind of erasing, I have a Facet BM2 here, which is a plastic eraser. And as we saw in the graphite demo, some of these erase better than others. The Faber Castell erased okay. It's not erasing as well on this paper. The last time I was on a mixed media paper, and it kind of erased a little bit better. The one of the Staedtlers were definitely harder to erase. I had a hard time erasing them. The just dry applied erased okay. This is a real weird feeling with the alcohol, and it kind of got through, but it's definitely kind of made a mess of my eraser. The Gamsol is very slick and yucky. Oil medium, which again I'm not sure is completely dry, but it is dry to, well, no, it's definitely not completely dry. So of these, oh, that kind of went powdery on me too, the water-based, and of course that is, and that is too. The Gamsol kind of held it down more. That's down more. Gum Arabic is definitely down, and then acrylic medium is down. So these would probably, some of these would probably need to be fixed afterwards. It looks like the water and the alcohol, possibly the Gamsol would need to be fixed, where the oil, gum Arabic, and the acrylic medium, those mediums are going to pull this and keep that pretty down. So that's an interesting thing. And again, with the water, you're able to kind of get the eraser through it with a bit of a mess. As I kind of suspected that the acrylic medium was no, and then I think once the gum Arabic's down and once the oil completely dries, it is not going to be erasable in any way or form. So I'm going to get another camera at another angle so you can see the surface quality of all this. So here's kind of an angle of all the different graphites on the sheet, so you can see kind of the surface quality, the reflectivity. So as you can see, the Faber-Castell has a little bit of sheen, but not too much. It's a fairly nice dark black. The Lumagraph, a little bit of sheen, especially where I really bear down on it there. And then the water, as we saw before, will have some sheen to it. But it has a decent surface. And it's definitely a gray, kind of like what you'd expect from graphite. And the one next to it is the acrylic medium, and that's a matte finish, and it held that matte finish, and it has a really nice look to me. You can see against the water, it's definitely a darker look, and the matte finish looks pretty nice. I don't know how practical that is in a drawing. Some of what you're going to try to do, if you're going to apply this to a drawing as a background or something, is it's got to kind of meld with the graphite that you're going to use on the paper. And so you'll have to test to see if that actually works for you. The gum Arabic has a little bit more of a sheen to it. So this one here is the gum Arabic. It's less than the water. Well, I don't know. It's similar water, but it is darker. So when you're looking at it more in a downward angle, it has a darker finish to it. But there is a little bit of a sheen. And then the oil, linseed oil, in this case water-soluble linseed oil, has a nice finish to it. It's fairly matte finish, and it's fairly dark. I think it's of the dark ones, which I think are the acrylic, gum Arabic, and the oil. They tend to kind of come out to be the darkest of them. With the it's kind of funny, but I think the acrylic might be the darkest by a hedge, just a little bit. And then the Gamsol, it has a really nice finish to it. It does shine a little bit. Kind of all of them tend to shine a little bit, with the matte medium probably being the least. But the Gamsol definitely has a nice look to it. It's a little bit grayer. I think it's probably one step grayer than I would see the alcohol, which this is the alcohol here, but not quite as dark as the matte medium or even the gum arabic or the oils. And then the final one is the dry medium, which is, as you can see, is definitely a mess. I'd have to clean that up, and kind of containing that to an area is a challenge. So the artists that use that a lot definitely must have somehow perfected that, so it's not quite a mess. I hope this gives you some idea of what you might be looking at if you applied different liquid mediums into graphite. I think it has a lot of possibilities, and I've seen people do it and use it to good effect. I think that going over large areas, this definitely has an appeal. It's very easy to do, other than getting an edge that, you know, would be really controllable, would be the challenge to doing that. Although, you know, I was just using cotton balls, but you could probably use a brush, or you could probably use something like a Q-tip. I think covering a really large area with these pencils would be kind of cumbersome, so you'd probably go to a block or something like that. And then these two products, the Faber Castell Pitt Graphic Matte and the Staedtler Lumagraph Black, are not anything but pencils to my knowledge. Okay, so there you are. That is our experiment with graphite. It was definitely kind of interesting. I didn't really know. It does feel like they all dried fairly short amount of time. I'm guessing the oil is still wet, although it seems to have a surface quality that would allow you to work around it. And because of probably the paper and the graphite, it would probably dry a little bit more rapidly than oil paint, and I put it on fairly thin. But all around, it looks like I might actually experiment with the acrylic medium. It would be interesting if I could then go and blend that with a traditional pencil. So this is a 2B pencil. Kind of put it between these so you get an idea of how this might blend between these. In all honesty, it does look like it probably would work and blend. So if you were working in pencil, I'm kind of guessing that you could blend any of these so that it looked like it was a part of the drawing. I mean, part of my concern would be, you know, having your drawing look one way and then having some background that you might have applied with this method, so it didn't really interact well. But it looks like it doesn't actually change the tone of the graphite. It just has a different surface quality and an ability to kind of cover an area very well. And again, I'm still kind of liking the acrylic medium, which was the one that I thought would probably be the less likely to work. The gum arabic, again, has a little bit more gloss to it. The oil medium and the Gamsol actually look nice. They have a really nice surface quality. And interesting experiment. Let me know your thoughts. Are you going to try any of these things? Have you tried any of these things? Let me and the other people in the community know. It's always helpful to hear feedback and ideas. And if you think I should try something else in this, let me know. I don't see any evidence that I would need a molar to mold the graphite into these mediums like I was theorizing in the other room. And it's definitely kind of an interesting thing. So if you like what I'm doing here, please consider giving us a subscribe and like down below, and please comment if you have any thoughts on this or appreciate what we're doing here. And now it's your turn. Go make some art.